The Red River Farm Network is celebrating the role of women in agriculture. Agricult-HER is the tag we go with this special salute through this month of March. It is made possible by the good folks of the Minnesota Soybean Research and Promotion Council, Minnesota Corn Growers Association, and Ag Country Farm Credit Services, along with others. Our guest, Kristi Van Ahn, a great friend of ours, Chief Operating Officer with Van Ahn and Company, risk management brokerage firm, commodity firm out of Alexandria, Minnesota. You hear on our airwaves quite a lot. Kristi, first of all, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you.
Let's talk about it if we can. Talk to me about your career path. How did you find your way into commodity marketing?
Yeah, so it was not my initial choice, right? This is what I grew up with. I remember back in high school, people would ask me what my dad did. And I'm like, I don't know. He works with farmers. I'm not sure, and I laugh now because I'm pretty sure that's what my kids say now about me when people ask. So my grandpa had started the business. He had been in the elevator business and was ready kind of to semi-retire and live a little bit of an easier life. Nowadays, this could never be a part-time job, but back then it really was. And so he had moved up to Minnesota. He loved to fish. I mean, loved to fish. And so he had moved up to Alexandria, started the business, and then my dad took it over. And so I grew up with my dad doing it. And then I think it was, I want to say like 2013 maybe, my brother-in-law and I took it over from my dad. My dad still kind of watches the markets and chirps in, but so I've been running this business. I've been a licensed broker since 2009. But I've been a big owner alongside my brother-in-law, Jim, who's our CEO, since that time frame. So it's been quite a while. The years go by super fast. But initially, I am such a numbers cruncher. I love the finance side of things. I've always loved math. I still to this day would say I would do math for fun. My kids can't believe it when they come home with math homework and their IXLs. I don't know if you guys have IXLs in North Dakota for their homework, but I would seriously think it was a game, and my kids are like, I can't believe you enjoy doing this. But so I had originally gone down to the U in the cities for finance at Carlson School of Business, and I just got down there and I slowly started to realize maybe that big corporate world is not for me. I'm a huge family person. I have always wanted to have a family. I'm very close with my family. I have Jim, like I said, my brother-in-law, he's married to my oldest sister, and then I have a sister in Fargo. So I'm the youngest of three girls. And it kind of slowly started to be like, gosh, I don't know if I want to be part of that brutal world. I don't know if I have it in me. And so my dad started kind of saying, well, maybe you should take a look at this side of the business. He's like, you would love it with the number crunching side of things. At that point, Jim had already been working and really had taken a role in running the company, even though my dad wasn't quite retired yet. And so slowly but surely, I decided to change and went up to NDSU so I could get some ag classes behind me. And so I graduated with a degree in ag business and finance from NDSU. And then right before my senior year of college, I got my Series 3 and then started working part-time my senior year. And then when I graduated, I became full-time, and that was in 2010. So it's been quite a bit of a ride, but initially it wasn't what was on my radar, but I am so glad. And I laugh because the numbers, I still love numbers, right? I love comparing, what we're at for a carry out compared to this past year, and how do you correlate those two? But it's actually really the relationship side of things that keeps me coming back to work. I mean, besides a paycheck, right? But I actually love that relationship side of things. I love discussing topics, whether it's agriculture or whether it's not, having those relationships and growing and having a part and saying, hey, I'm firmly trying to help this farm succeed and continue to farm from year to year. So I would say that's probably my favorite part of the job now, but it initially started with the numbers.
Your story sounds so familiar to a lot of our farm families where it's a family business and you transition in, maybe you go away and go to school or what have you. Are there's goods and bads to that sometimes being in a legacy family type of business?
Yeah, so like I said, my dad has been retired for quite some time, but he still watches the markets very closely. And my dad's not somebody to shy away from an opinion. I am thankful for that. I feel like that's probably how I'm going to end up as an older parent as well. You know, I have those opinions and I'm not afraid to say them. But that's one of the questions I get the most is, oh, you run a family business? How does that go? And surprisingly, it goes really well for Jim and I. We are polar opposite people. We are very different individuals, and I think that really helps. He's very I would say tedious and meticulous and grindstone type of a mentality. And I'm a little bit of a different personality when it comes to that. And I think we both come together really well to run the business. And that's not being said that we haven't had our tiffs, but we're really good at both of us speaking our opinion and moving on and not holding grudges, which I'm very thankful for because I have heard some really rough stories about running a family business, but surprisingly, it goes really, really well for us, and I'm very thankful for him. And to be honest, he started dating my sister when I was in like fourth grade. So, I mean, he is my brother-in-law, but he's been with me a majority of my life.
Very cool. So, what's a typical day like for you, Kristi?
Yeah, so when I come into work, so that's also part of the luxury of the family business is that I also get to really still be a mom, and I'm very thankful for that. My sister that Jim's married to was my daycare provider. She doesn't do daycare, she's a stay-at-home mom. She watched my kids for me, so that made my ability to be a working mom so much easier. And I think that's one of the things I talked about in a speech. So in Alexandria, we do professional Alexandria professionals under 40. And I was able to have that award a couple years ago. And when I talked about my speech, I really talked about how it takes a village. I know that saying gets used a lot, but I could not do what I do unless I had the people surrounding me, right? Jim is a great person to work alongside. My sister watched my kids. If I'm running late, I know I have my parents in town for majority of the time to help me out. And so when you look at what a normal day is for me, I still get to bring my kids to school, which I'm very thankful for. So I get them to school. I have those great conversations with them. And when I get into work, we send out a morning update and an afternoon update. And so we start working on that right away, kind of see what market, what news is moving the market at this point, get our update out. We email that out. And then from there, there's 8 of us in the office for licensed brokers plus 1 support. And we all meet. And I think that's the best thing is that we all have strong opinions. And I really enjoy hearing somebody's opinion on what they think the market could do, what we should be looking at, and kind of a different outlook. And so we all come together, we talk about kind of some price objectives that we might be thinking, what are our biggest risks for producers right now? And we always say when we hire somebody that we do not want to hire somebody that isn't going to talk and isn't going to provide input into it. And so we enjoy that. So we all meet together. And then once the markets are open, you're constantly talking to producers throughout the day. Some days it's crazy. Some days it's quiet. I always laugh that if we're looking at buying a commodity, buying a call, we get a lot more calls than if we were to talk about downside protection. So I think a producer likes to be bullish most of the time and optimistic. And so those days get to be a little bit busier. By the end of the close of the markets, we put an afternoon update together, and so we get that out, and then by the end of the day, it flies by. Lately, I've been traveling a lot more for work, and so that's been really fun to get out in front of individuals and talk about the markets. I feel like a lot of producers put a lot of work towards, their seed decisions, their crop insurance decisions, all of those aspects, but then they don't put that work towards marketing. And you might, be saying, well, that's because you do marketing. That's why you think that. But I mean, you don't have to work with somebody to really focus on marketing and pay attention and the little details that can come out, just focusing on even at the elevator, your futures and your basis and the carry in the market, that itself can be such a big role to the bottom line for a farm and really give some big opportunities for the market.
I got to say, just you talk about your newsletter. We get a lot of market newsletters at the network, and yours is one I read every day. It's to the point and great information. So I always appreciate that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. We are very fortunate with our staff that we have. And I think that's one of the things is that there's no point of putting a bunch of fluff in it, right? So we like to really put the important details in it. And we also like to really put our opinion in there. Our opinion, we're not always right. And so, but we're never going to shy away from that. Because we don't want somebody to call us out down the road saying, well, you said this 3 months ago, or you moved on marketing and we're 50 cents higher on corn. That is something that we are never going to shy away from. And it doesn't mean we're always going to be right. No one's ever right. But we really explain why we make the decisions that we do.
You talked about your love for numbers and crunching numbers. This is also a relationship business too, though. When you're talking to producers, that has to be kind of an art to marry those two things.
It is, I think, initially when people start the relationship with me, they don't know how to approach it, right? Because, majority of the relationships are with a male, and sometimes that's a little bit of a different relationship, but I think they quickly realize, it's all about communication. You're not going to get anywhere unless you're communicating, and you're not going to get anywhere unless you're truly communicating, right? So there's no point of skirting around what you're thinking or what you have in the bin or, what your thoughts are. And I also really appreciate when somebody tells me, I don't think that's right. I don't agree with you. I don't want to sell here, and this is why, because those conversations not only make the producer better, but they also give me a chance to sit back and be like, am I missing out on something? Should we be talking a little bit more about this? Or it gives me a chance to explain why I want to do this a little bit more in detail to a producer. So the relationship side of things is so important. I truly think that some of the best marketers are the ones that have the conversations, think through the process, create the plan versus just doing what somebody might tell them or something they might read on the internet.
I'm curious, are there things that the ag industry can do that could support young women coming into this industry?
Yeah, I think about that quite a bit. I just think that the more you can see women in agriculture, the easier it is for younger girls coming up and saying, hey, I can do that too. And I didn't really realize that right away when I had started. To be honest, I'm not this huge person that thinks about the gender relationships, the gender identities for, what a girl should do, what a guy should do. And so I never really thought through that until, recently over these last 2 years, I've been able to be fortunate to be on Market to Market down in Iowa. My grandparents live down in Iowa. And my grandma is so proud of me. And I know she's always been proud of me my entire life. So, there's no question about that. But I'm really realizing that the opportunities that I had, she never had those opportunities. And I think that she's just in awe with how it doesn't matter anymore. And I think that's the biggest thing is seeing that dynamic. Obviously, when I look back and I first start, your main feature was Sue Martin, right? There wasn't a lot of other ones out there. And I'm just so proud at the amount of females that are involved in agriculture now, and that this next generation can say, hey, I want to stay on the farm. I want to do this. I want to help my family's legacy some way, somehow involved in agriculture. And they feel like they have every right to. And so that is really important to me. And I think it's so great. And I'm the youngest of 3 girls. I have 3 girls myself. And so this is nothing new to me. This is something that's been my poor dad, my poor husband. And it's just seeing that reaction into my children, pouring into them that they can do whatever they want, whether it's agriculture, whether it's something else, is such a gift. And it really makes me proud. But I would say my grandma, just seeing how proud she is of me is such a big deal to me.
I look back, it's probably been 5 years plus ago. You were on the panel with us at the Big Iron Farm Show, and we had 2 female farm broadcasters, and the 3 analysts were all female, and nobody made a big deal about it. It was just that's who's giving us the information today, and to me that was very, very cool.
Yeah, and that panel is going to go down as the best panel I've ever been on. I think that, not because it was all female, that was just a panel that's discussion was amazing and really built off of each other. I think that's the best thing is that it's easy to be in a situation, whether it's male or female, of trying to sound like you know more or trying to one up somebody. And that panel was, I cannot stress that enough. That was my favorite panel to ever be on. I've been on a lot of panels, but just building off of each other, creating those ideas, that's one of the most awesome things you can be part of.
Proud to hear that. That's very cool. Um, So I'm curious. I just look at agriculture as a whole and commodity marketing, I'm sure as well. Oftentimes misunderstood by the general public. Are there things that can be done to change that in your view?
Yeah, I think just education is so important. So, this is one thing I tell some guys I work with that if they have kids that want to be part of the farm, I can't stress that enough that majority of these places now have at least one or two classes on farm marketing. If you're going for some sort of farm business or diesel mechanic or something like that, they should offer those classes as well. And that's really where I stress saying, hey, get involved, take a class on that. Luckily nowadays there's so much information online, YouTube about understanding the ins and outs of marketing, the carry, the basis opportunity, and asking questions. I think that's one thing when I had talked about you don't need to necessarily work with somebody to start your marketing to improve your marketing. I mean, obviously I would say that if you really want to be good at marketing, you should work with somebody, but to start, you don't have to straight go to somebody. They can be simple questions to your elevator saying, can you walk me through the carry in the market? Can you explain to me why I should be locking this in or rolling this out? And I think sometimes there's that concern between a producer and the elevator that they don't want to tell them everything. And I can understand that you don't want to tell them everything, but they also are there to help you because they need your business. And so that walking through the situation of understanding the seasonal tendencies of basis being good, right? We know that basis is the widest at harvest typically. It's going to take a really freak accident like, COVID and shutting down ethanol plants to really make a worse basis than not at harvest. And that's because there's a lot of grain that comes to town because of the ability to hold it on the farm. So we know those are your worst basis opportunities. So even being able to skirt past those first couple months of harvest is so important and can easily make you quite a bit of money on the farm by just being able to bypass that. So I think there's so many different educations that you can look up online. But I think one of the hardest things is that I'll hear people when I'm talking be like, I did options once and I lost a bunch of money and I just won't do it again. And I would say that that's true. Options, I think it's like 80% of the time options go worthless, right? So you're losing money on them. And I think the big thing is an option is not meant to be just put on and left on. It's about management. And I also think you need to relate it to somebody. So for example, let's say I have you sell corn. I tell you to put a call on, you put a call on, corn drops off 50 cents. You obviously lose that value in that call. You're going to get a statement saying you lost 10 to 15 cents. What you're not going to get is a statement saying you've picked up 50 cents on the farm by selling what you did. And so it's easy to see something, see that paper, see that loss, where you're not seeing your smart choices really put on paper as far as those decisions go. So to me, if a call went worthless, that's the least of my concern. You made a really good sale, you put cash in your hand, you took advantage of that. But it's hard to wrap your mind around that in the beginning because you're actually seeing those losses in your email box.
I've been on a lot of, we go to a lot of meetings, and I've heard a number of folks, Ed Usset is the one that comes to mind, saying that women are often better marketers than men. Maybe they don't fall in love with the crop as much. Would you say that's a fair assessment, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm a little biased on that, but I do think so. Yeah, I think women are very good at making a decision and just saying it is what it is, right? I think that's also part of a reason why you should work with somebody is because that layer of separation is so important, right? It would be very hard for me to make the marketing decisions I suggest having to grow that crop, put all the work in it, put all the work of harvesting that crop, moving it to the bin, and then having somebody tell me to sell it and be like, I don't like this price. It would be very hard for me to do that. However, it's easy for me not having that emotional tie to the crop to say, this is why I'm telling you to do this. These are why we're making these decisions. And so that layer of separation is so important, I think, for marketing. But I do laugh quite a bit when it comes to, I get that quite a bit when I'm speaking or saying, hey, I heard women are the best marketers. I just think that, there is that little bit of separation when you're working on a farm. And if the guy is, the male is coming in here and putting all that hard labor into it and the female's a little bit removed, it's going to be easier for her to make that decision than it is for the producer.
I've enjoyed this conversation. We could go on forever. Any final thoughts you'd want to leave with our audience, particularly as we celebrate agriculture and women in agriculture?
Yeah, I would say don't be scared. You're going to be the different person in the room. We're very fortunate that you're starting to see more women in agriculture. I'm on panels with other women. It's been great, but for the most part, you're going to be the different duck in a room. And sometimes you're going to get some uncomfortable situations just because it's different. I'll never forget when I first started, I had gotten more questions if I was single for their sons than I did about grain marketing. So, that's what you're going to get, is kind of some weird situations like that. But overall, as you move on, don't be afraid to be bold. And I think that's one thing that I will harp into my three girls so much is, do not be afraid to be bold. Do not be afraid to state your opinion and do what you want to do. And I think that as we continue to evolve, I'm so excited for this next round of generation that isn't going to shy away from wanting to stay home or partake some way, somehow in the family legacy.
Well, great information, Kristi, as always. Thanks so much for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you.
Kristi Van Ahn with us from Van Ahn and Company, Alexandria, Minnesota, as we celebrate women in agriculture with our special series, Agriculture.